Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of 7 Minutes Scaling Secrets, where we interview entrepreneurs and learn a secret on how they scaled up their businesses. Today, we have a special guest, Lydia Lim, who runs Lux Exquisite. It's a full stack online to offline jewelry store, and they have ready stock and bespoke offerings from design, stone sourcing, and manufacturing. Some of the things that Lydia is especially passionate about is the circular economy, upcycling, and of course, gemology. Lydia, welcome to the show, and why not just tell us a little bit more about your passions? This episode was brought to you by Superscaling. Join the Superscaling Ignite program today and learn how you can systemize and superscale your business so that your revenues can grow to at least $100,000 a month with a productive team from all over the world, raving fans as clients, and happy founders who have true freedom. Visit superscaling.com/ignite today. And now, back to the episode.
Hi, thanks for having me. So like you were saying about my passion, well, it's gemology first, but now with the market changing and COVID and of course climate change and everything, I'm extra passionate about the circular economy and upcycling because of course with mining, it's not the best for environment, clean water, metal pollution, that kind of thing. So I think now I'm at this inflection point of the business as well in the world that we can really make a change just by how we consume. So it's not a big sacrifice for us to do, but my goal is to make it easier for people to consume, more ethical products. So that's where I like to position myself and grow the business forward.
Okay, is that part of what Lux Exquisite does? Is that one of the
Yes.
unique selling points of the business?
That's actually our only unique selling point because everything else is just like any other jeweler, right? Full stack, you have your gem sourcing, you have the design, you have the manufacturing. I think for pre-owned, probably 5-10 years ago, it's not very exciting because people didn't need to buy secondhand or see the value in that. But now it's changing, right? So we all kind of going towards anti-fast fashion and things. So consumer behavior has changed. So I think now the timing is perfect. And for me, I think it's important because if I allow people to, shop more easily, ethically, I think, even though we're just a drop in the ocean, right? But together we can have a seat at the table as consumer. So if the demand can force the supply to change or slow down the supply even, then, that's how the whole cycle works, right? So it's more powerful that way. Yeah, so we don't have to preach. I just want to give them the option and then let's see what people do with it. And I believe they will make that decision themselves.
Cool.
Yeah.
So in summary, if I understand you properly and for the benefit of the audience, what you're saying is that you take pre-owned pieces, you redesign them, clean them up, do stuff with them to make them like brand new and then you sell those pieces.
Yes, and these pieces you can either sell them to me, like like a second good store, or you can bring in your current pieces and just ask me to update or we'll suggest things for you, right? Like design or certain elements that you like to keep, like certain stones that you like, but you don't really like the metal, you don't like the design. There's some things that hold extra sentimental value, but not the entire thing. So we'll work with you on that. Yeah, so that's the super bespoke part, but I really like redesign also on a personal level, because I know this means something to you already and you want to lengthen the whole thing, right? And at the end of the day, jewelry is actually, there's no lifespan. So if we can use it forever, why not? Yeah. That's what heirlooms are all about, right? To be kept in the family. And that's very special for me to be included in something like that. Yeah.
Oh, I love that, man. Because jewelry, like you said, I don't think timeless means it has to be the same shape and form all the time. There can be updates and revisions.
Yeah, and they trust me to do that, right? That's very special too, because if I screw it up, the heirloom is gone. So I like to participate in this, and I'm really grateful people give me a chance to be in this part of their life, right? The happiness, to share the happiness with them. I'm just glad to be there.
Okay. How did you even get started then? Like, were you a gemologist by trade? Were you
correct? I'm a gemologist. Yeah, so I'm a gemologist first, but the whole thing started when I was doing my master thesis with a specification on blood diamonds. So I understood the industry a little bit better. So I was always more on the consumer side, right? I understood retail, I understood design, I knew what people like to buy, that kind of thing. But I never knew how detrimental it is to the environment until I did my master thesis. Then I decided to be a gemologist to understand more, the chemical composition of the earth and all that. And then but as usual, being in a city like Singapore, you have to make sure people only move, supply only move, and people only start to make positive changes when demand forces you to, right? When the buy side tells you that I want to know, that I want to make sure that this is not, that nobody died over this, nobody got hurt over this, that also the mining situation is very clean cut, right? There's no humans who are, risking their lives for it. That's very important too. So
absolutely.
Demand for that, there'll be
and
transparency.
Where did that come from? Like, how
I
did
think
that?
it's a little bit of me that's altruistic. I think that's one. And also because I'm female, right? So a lot of the mining areas, a lot of them are usually sometimes done by children because their hands are smaller, they can see about things better. And that just kind of hurts me just looking at them going through that. So if we can make a positive change and not actually change too much of our lifestyle, can just consume more effectively, I think that'll be very powerful.
Great.
Yeah.
I love that mandate about upcycling, about making sure that we
Like,
use what's already in the economy, right, to
Yeah.
get the things that we want. Lux Exquisite, when was it started?
We actually launched December 2019, so it was a bit scary. But for me, at that point in time, I was like, let's just launch because I was already preparing for it during the year, right? So it's either now or never. But the only choice I had to make at that time was not to think about not launching, but it's just I have to scale back. So I can't go as big. I can't do like a launch party. I can't do all that kind of stuff. I just have to start the business and then kind of roll. And I think looking back, that's probably what saved me. Because then I wasn't overspending. I wasn't going too crazy with my capital outlay, right? I wasn't getting too big because I had this whole, like the whole COVID thing. So it prevented me from spending and it kept me more realistic if anything. So it was actually a good thing.
Well, I think being lean and being like, people like to call it frugal, but I just like thinking that you are very intentional about what you spend on, right? And there needs to be a clear case of expenditure because it's a business that we're running and it has to make sense. So kudos to you on that. Tell us more. I'm sure the audience would love to find out, how did you manage to start a business right at the start of a global pandemic and manage to do well?
So the timing wasn't great. To be honest, in 2020, of course, now we are 10 months profitable. So that's really exciting for me. But in 2020, I will never forget that there were months where we had zero sales, right? And then the whole was just like, oh, I don't want to spend. I don't know what's going to happen. Everyone was thinking maybe there'll be a recession. So the disposable income was basically just disappeared. It probably just improved a little bit towards the end of the year for 2020, around December, when Bitcoin was at an all-time high and everybody was feeling better. Like, okay, COVID is bad, but we probably wouldn't die from it. The vaccines are being rolled out. So people were feeling better. But at the start of 2020, it was very scary. It was pandemonium everywhere. And of course, that was just freaky, right? So that was my thought process. Immediately, of course, I was just like, okay, I just have to survive. What is my monthly burn? How much am I paying for rental? How much am I paying for people? How much do I need to make? That's all. So I wasn't thinking about how to expand, what kind of collaborations to do, what kind of new products to have. It's just how to stay afloat first.
Yeah.
So it was super like survivalist. Yeah, correct. But if you ask me that just 3 months before I launched, that was when I had like this whole, like, I want to do a launch party, I want to like, market to the world and everything, right? But then when COVID hit, I was like, okay, wait, let's not do that. Because even if I did market, people will be aware of me, but they're not in the mood to spend. So there's no point. They're not ready to listen, no point to push the sale, right? So that actually prolonged my lifespan, if anything, because I didn't already accidentally use up my money. Yeah.
Okay, and how do you grow the business?
So I think, because of that, I grew organically. So what happened was during the downtime, I figured, okay, let me maybe try to think about live streaming, think about, it gave me some time to learn about data engineering, kind of data analytics kind of stuff during COVID, right? So I was doing that during the lockdown. And I thought to myself, wait. So I started to have better roadmaps for my digital marketing, but I was not getting results at all. And it was nothing to do with how we were doing it, because I was comparing with other agencies. So I used an agency to help me, of course. I don't have any experience there, right? They told me, actually, your conversion numbers is correct. It's within the e-commerce space from 2 to 3%. But that's not enough for me to survive, right? So I said, that conversion is not good. So what do I do? So in the end, I decided to shut down all my digital marketing first. I just kept social media alive, right? And I just survived based on referral. So what happened was, when I was thinking to myself, I look at this industry 10 years ago, 20 years ago, how does everybody else do it? How does the previous generation do it? Now, I never had a previous generation in the business. But if I was just observe everybody else, like along Orchard Road, you brick and mortar guys, right? They only made it because of word of mouth. I told myself, hey, now I have the internet, I can use it to my advantage. But if I don't have that, I should be able to survive without it, right? So that made me think twice about how I was going to spend, how I was going to expand, and that if I was expanding, the ROI has to be there. Yeah. So that actually made me feel, oh, actually, you know, my initial launch plan was super flawed, if anything. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do you do it differently then?
So how did I do it differently? I understood that 80% of it was mostly referral based, and in digital marketing, it's just something I did for fun, but I never really relied on it because the results, again, for jewelry is very different to traditional e-commerce where, for example, if I was selling like phone cases, that kind of stuff, right? Phone cases of clothing from like $20 to $40, $50, where people, they may frequent your website every 1-2 months, you know, buy a pair of pants, buy a pair of socks, right? For mine, it's always very occasion based. So even if I've done the awareness right now, people will wait till like, oh, it's Christmas season, I'm going to treat myself, or I'm going to, you know, propose, then I'm going to come for the ring maybe a year or two later. So so that's the thing. So the timing of how soon I see my ROI is actually longer. Yeah. Before that, we were just measuring like click-through rate and stuff like that, right? But then the cart checkout didn't reflect the click-through rate. So it just dropped off. So I was like, oh. Yeah. So these are the little things I had to learn the hard way.
Okay. Well, it sounds like referral marketing is one of the cornerstones of your business.
Correct.
How do you develop that?
That's the thing. I don't know what I did in the first place. So now if somebody asks me, hey, how are you going to scale yourself? I'll tell you very honestly, I have no idea. I think people just, I don't know whether it's the feng shui or people just remember my face or they just like talking to me or something, but they just keep coming, right? But there's actually, I have not figured out what the equation is, right? What my special sauce is. I think it was just like, oh, what convenient, we're easy to talk to. And that's what they like. Maybe I'm thinking maybe one of the things is our hotline is 24 hours and we promise a 12-hour lag time. So no matter what, you'll hear from us. Yeah. So I think that makes people comfortable. One of the things I've noticed is they shop usually on the weekends, maybe at like 12 midnight, 1 a.m., right? So if your customer service is actually awake at that time, it makes sense to pack someone there on the weekends than say on a weekday from like 9 to 2 p.m.
Absolutely.
9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Yeah, I'll switch that out. So little things like that.
Yeah, I love that. That's literally being customer centric and knowing what your customer wants.
And something so small is game changing because you reply immediately like, wow, this store not bad.
Exactly, right? So it lends a lot of confidence and helps people with their process. So absolutely love what you did. What about data analytics? You mentioned that, like, what about data analytics was important to you in terms of digital marketing? What was the revelation that you
was during? So I learned about the A/B testing, right? I had to A/B test myself, but in the end, I created my own data sets, right? So it's almost things like just very simple with the images. Like, do I have the images like on a flat lay, on a background, a still image, on a person, like, like the top half, or like really just zooming to the ear, that kind of things. All those I had to do A/B testing, which I never learned in school. I just had to, figure it out on my own through Instagram and social media. And then after that, of course, start to have smaller data sets where I would post on certain times on certain days, weekdays, weekends, and then go and see what is my result. So I had to create my own. There was no like guideline for this.
And you found that was giving you good results.
Yeah. After I went through that for 2 to 3 months, I had a data set. Then from there, I started to replicate my results, and it was quite consistent after. But the 2-3 months was of course horrible, it's just in the dark, right?
Yes.
Correct.
There's the experimentation phase, which is unfortunately more tedious, but you've got to like try to actually get something on a baseline level before you can actually even optimize and improve. And I think that's the process that people tend to not want to do. And it just
they do it for too short and the data set is too small, right? Or they just tried a few times, like, oh wait, it's not working. Actually, you need 100 times, then you can get a percentage of it. Or if you're late 50 times, but that's about it. But you can't go less than 10, for example.
Yeah, in statistics, it's known as statistical significance, right? There's no point like going for such a small data set because it's not significant at all. Cool. I love that. I think that's the true spirit of an entrepreneur that's growing a business, and really reminds me of how I started and grew my own business.
A little bit of delusion is needed when you're going through that. And one of the
Absolutely.
experiences for that was my TikTok also, right? We first started, it was like, oh my God, we're getting like 20, 200, 300, that kind of views. Sometimes until the first time we hit 4 million, we're like, hey, wow, we never got there before.
Love
But
it.
then now we're back to like the hundreds and sometimes we're in the thousands. But yeah, TikTok is also something very difficult to learn. And I don't know what the algorithm is, so that's even worse.
Yeah,
But that whole entrepreneurial delusion and belief in yourself is what keeps you going to keep testing,
absolutely. You
trying.
keep trying.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, no loss, right? If it's really horrible, you can always delete. What's the worst that can happen? So
Yeah.
that's something that I always tell myself. Yeah.
Oh, I love that spirit. All right, Lydia, tell us, what do you think is the most important habit to be a successful entrepreneur?
Well, I can only talk about myself, right? So I think when I was younger, I used to read books like Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, that kind of thing. Because let's say 10 years ago, I was probably a lot more uncomfortable with the unknown. So I needed more of like a textbook approach. But for now, in my 30s, things are different. So there's two key habits that I practice on myself. One of it is, of course, discipline, right? That's quite self-explanatory. I think if you can see just the way I move and I talk, I do have ADHD. So discipline is something I have to force myself into. And the way I did it was to create a routine or even a checklist, depending on what I need to get done. Sometimes my average target is just to accomplish only 80% of my checklist. So there are good days where I need a daily checklist and sometimes monthly or weekly, depending on what you're doing, right? Whether your goals are more micro or macro. So that
Right.
kind of stuff just shifts. But that discipline thing is something I always need and I practice daily. Then the other one is something I just learned, a little bit more intrinsic, something I learned in 2022 this year, is self-talk, right? So someone told me this. It's very helpful when you're going through bouts of uncertainty at work, on life, personal life, whatever. And I think we all tend to be, as founders especially, very harsh on ourselves, right? Because usually when we set up on a business, you're like, hey, this is the goal. I'm going to scale 10 times. I'm going to be like the next unicorn. That's what we dream of. But when you start, you're never there.
Right.
So, I mean, you keep falling, it's very easy to kind of just spiral down. So I think with that whole self-talk thing, it's important to take note, to be kind to yourself and remind yourself, right? Go back to the base and remind yourself why you started on this, why you started this and how you believe in it so strongly before. And also, it's just a bad day, not a bad life, right? And if you're having a bad year in work, it could be just a bad year. The climate is not there. People are not spending as much, especially for retail, but it's not a bad business model. It's just that
Absolutely.
you have that cycle, but you just have to ride now. So like now again, like my marketing spending is very different to when the times were good or my plan initially, right?
Right.
So that's something, the self-talk is very important. And I'm a strong believer that the energy you put out is the energy that you'll get back. So if you self-talk to yourself like, oh my God, life is so bad. Oh my God, I'm so tired every day. I'm so, that is what you're putting out to the universe and you're probably going to get that back. So you need to catch yourself first, right? And then the only way is you catch yourself first and, don't let the fear and negativity get to you because everything you do in life, actually, you have a choice, right? So if you remind yourself that, like you don't have total control, but every single thing you do, actually, you have a choice. Then you realize actually you do somewhat have absolute control of your
Yeah.
life. And then you feel a lot better already. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you can do it the next day, and that's all you need, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I very much like the Stoic philosophy of a life, and there are spheres in which we can control and cannot control, right? And knowing the difference between those spheres gives a lot of clarity over the actions that should and should not be within something that we think about or fret about or worry about. Cool,
Yeah.
love that. One last question. What advice would you give to another business owner?
Well, I don't know. So, I mean, for me, so far, I've just been surviving, right? I'm just being opportunistic with what happens and reacting to things. So the current situation for the past 2 years has been like that because of COVID. In terms of advice, well, I hope people come to me and I will have to listen for 15 minutes first before I even know if I'm relevant. So I don't have any super advice now. If anything, it's just like very motivational type stuff. And then if it's motivational, I would advise them to listen to Alvin to meet you instead of me, right?
Well, I'm sure the audience will have a lot to take away from your podcast episode.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about analytics as well as referral marketing and really thinking about what can and cannot be controlled, right? And therefore, having that mindset when we run our business as well is something that I think keeps us in check. All right. Lydia, thank you so much for the episode. Now, if our audience will want to contact you or check out what Lux Exquisite has to offer, what's the best way to do so?
You can find us on our socials. On Instagram, it's just at exquisite.official, or my personal Instagram, just Lydia Madeline Lim. So just drop me a DM there and then you can just get started to talk, or just add me on LinkedIn, right?
Sounds good. I'll have the links down in the show notes and descriptions as well so that you guys can all check that out. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening in to another episode of 7-Minute Scaling Secrets. I hope you loved the episode. Please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and let me know what you liked or did not like about the episode. Please take care, everybody, and I'll see you guys soon.